And live from Brussels for the last time in 2024, it's ZN Live
Very nice.
to stay one step ahead of the latest trends, digital conversations, and all the stuff that we think is interesting. And today we have a very special guest from ZN. That's right. This is Marsela. Marsela, who's often working on the strategy behind the scenes for some of the content that you see in our marketing. Marsela is a senior account manager and strategic advisor for ZN, working across a range of different things. And we're very excited to have you on the show. And actually, one of the things I want to ask you, because your role changed quite a bit this year. So, Marcela, what happened? What have you been doing? And what's your kind of highlight of 2023?
Thank you, Phil. What a great introduction. So yeah, indeed, earlier this year, I was promoted to senior account manager and strategic advisor, and it has been quite the journey, I have to say. So while I'm still managing some of my key clients and working with my amazing project managers, I'm also much more involved in overseeing the business development and the marketing strategy for ZN. And this has been quite interesting because I've managed to learn and grow a lot in 2023. We are currently working on optimizing on quite a few different fronts our customer-centric strategy to ensure that everything we do on all of our operations is really tailored to answer client needs in a better and more efficient way. We're also developing surveys, insights to collect feedback, not just on the collaboration, but also on specific priorities and needs that allow us to improve our our services and to deliver better and higher quality products for our clients. And this is, of course, including qualitative and quantitative tactics, but we are now able to measure in a much better and more precise way how our efforts are getting us closer to those desired goals. There's, of course, a lot more work to be done, and we're always striving to improve. But I have to say that I'm really proud of all of the progress that we achieved this past year, and I'm looking forward to seeing how we can continue to grow and innovate in 2024.
Yeah, and I think one of the challenges that agencies have, and I think it's the case in a lot of professions, is how do you put in practice the things that you're doing for your clients? And for a couple of years when we started ZN, we didn't have a website, and we were telling people, "Hey, you need a website." These were early days of the internet, and I think what we've been doing on our marketing for the past few years is to try to be much more consistent in applying what we're doing with our clients to ourselves. And I think what we've seen now is a kind of real sharpening of that with how do we use social media to reach our customers, and that allows us to experiment with things because sometimes our clients are not necessarily ready, and so we can say, okay, how does that work, test it out, and if it works, then we can use it with our clients. I'm actually very excited about the work we've been doing around the newsletter for ZN, which started on LinkedIn and rolled out across other channels. Can you tell us a little bit more about the thinking behind this, and what it was at the beginning and what it's today, and how you see that evolving?
Yeah, absolutely. I think for me, this is also one of my key highlights really from 2023 Zeitgeist News. And I think it's really the cornerstone of all of our communication efforts because it encapsulates all of the key trends, the latest news in a singular communication piece that we kind of use then to distribute and transform into social media posts across various different channels. But it all ties back into that key content. And I've heard a lot of positive feedback also from clients, the network, on how useful it is to gather all of that key information at a quick glance and to kind of stay up to date with everything that's going on with the evolving landscape. So for me, that's really rewarding. And I have to say, like, a big shout out to the fantastic team that is working behind the scenes every week to bring this to life, because it's thanks to these incredible people that we're able to deliver high quality and engaging content with the support of AI, of course. But I think one of the big insights or learnings from me from this specific work stream is that having a strong and detailed communication plan that takes into account all of the various different content pieces provides a structure for the vast team that is, working behind the scenes of copywriters, editors, designers, can really help stream this collaboration and help us deliver the newsletter in an efficient and coherent way every week. As I said, we do work with AI in terms of, the content creation, not just ChatGPT, but we also use Midjourney for all of the cool AI-generated thumbnails for the newsletter. Maybe I can just give you an example of how it looks like so that...
Yeah, I think it'd be great to just, because I think, a lot of people probably see maybe the newsletter coming through, or they read it, but I think there's been a kind of approach from an idea to something that gets more and more systematic. And I think what you said, which is really important, and the hard part is the execution. So, do a newsletter with relevant inputs every week, and then things that make it different. And I think, we've got our alliterative title, which for some reason, started, and we're still sticking to it. So you can already share the screen.
I am sharing. I don't know if you can see.
Here we go.
Right.
We can say the shit. So this week it's Fediverse Futures and 2023 Farewells. And I think, we've actually, our approach was to make the AI look and feel part of the kind of newsletter. And it's been staying. And another thing maybe is you can talk about the photos that we're using. So initially we were using generic people, and then we changed the approach.
Indeed. I think it started off as a generic visualization of what the title and what the content of the newsletter was about. But then slowly we wanted to shift towards spotlighting the network. So in the last edition of 2023, you see here an AI-generated image of Christina. She's
Hi, Christina.
one of our digital strategists, an incredible and invaluable asset to our team. I think she looks amazing. She told me she loves the fringe. You always look great, Christina, but with AI, even better if that's possible. And indeed, so we kind of follow a similar structure in every newsletter. We always try to put at the top the highlight or the opinion piece of what's going on right now in the digital world. And as you all know, there's been a lot of changes and shifts over the last months, especially with the recent launch of Threads. We've been documenting this, especially the last couple of weeks, and will continue to do so. But there's a lot of emerging new platforms, a lot of new trends. We have here a snippet of Dave Keating and his skepticism towards, X, which I'm sure a lot of people also share. We have some client testimonials as well, or standout moments from projects that we worked on, or anything that our clients wanted to share with us, either at the event, the EU Influencer and ZN25 event that happened earlier this year in September, or any current projects that we have been working on, or campaigns that we've launched. We want to make sure that this is spotlighted here in the newsletter. Because we are proud of the work that we do, and we want to, of course, share it with everyone so that they can see all of the amazing things that we're able to bring to life with creativity and innovation. Here's Christina. That's why she's featured in the newsletter as well, because she wanted to share with us some insights into digital communication strategies and blending technology with the human touch. So indeed, here we have a lot of teasers here into the following ZN live session, or what happened last week with some of the key takeaways, recommendations from the team. We try to also feature important events that are happening in the EU bubble. This time, we wanted to give a shout out to We Startup Network, focusing more on female entrepreneurs. And of course, the digital news and trends. This is something that I think is also really key in the newsletter itself. And we will talk about the Fediverse a little bit later on. But there's a lot of new developments, new changes happening on the landscape. And we want to make sure that the people reading this newsletter have this information at a quick glance and can really get, all of the important news in one place, which is not just in the newsletter itself, but as I said earlier, we try to then disseminate this across all of the platforms so that people that are not on, for example, LinkedIn, can also have the chance to read more, to learn, and to be one step ahead with Zeitgeist News.
Very good. Yeah, and we're now also doing it. I mean, I think it's a great way to summarize what's been happening, our thoughts, our insights, and we're doing it on LinkedIn, but also to be consistent with our approach, we've started doing a email newsletter, which we're building up in parallel, because on LinkedIn we have over 1,100 subscribers, which is pretty amazing. I mean, it's actually a kind of sign opt-in database, so it's people coming to us interested. So it shows that we have quite some reach. I just want to highlight that Gaia told us happy last ZN Live of 2023. She said that from X. And Leora says, sounds good. All the best to you all. Have a fabulous new year. Leora, I hope you have a fantastic 2024. And by the way, this is part of the multi-channel approach that I think StreamYard, which we're using to stream this, has. So now, and apparently it's new, when you make a comment on X, it'll pop up as a comment directly from X here. So it's a real multi-platform tool. And of course, maybe we'll be welcoming Threads comments soon. So this is going to be very interesting in talking about what channels people should use in the coming year. And for that, something we've been talking about a lot, Marsela, we've talked about, Threads last week, how we have to be multi-channel. We've been talking about this for since actually EU Influencer and beyond. And we've also been doing some research. Now, we haven't finished that exercise, but we've already got some hints, and maybe you can share a few of the highlights that are coming and that we'll be communicating next year.
Indeed. And I think I just want to take a step back and reflect on why we started this. It's also because, everyone is confused about where to go and what to do. And with all of these changes that are happening constantly, it's really difficult to, see where do you bet, which channel do you bet on? So we started doing this research in December, and as you said, Phil, we will revamp this more in January, but I think even after the elections, because that will be a key moment too. And what I can, maybe tease today is that as we wanted to understand where the EU commissioners and MEPs are active on, whether they're activities on X have shifted since the Elon Musk takeover, we actually saw that all of these different developments, like X's declining reputations, new channels emerging, Threads being launched, but also the Fediverse taking a bit more precedence in 2023, it was important to understand whether there's actually any real migration and diversification happening. So some of the things that our research was able to identify is that over the last couple of years, and especially in the last quarter of 2023, we have seen a decreasing online activity on X, both from the EU commissioners and MEPs. Another interesting highlight was that Instagram actually appeared as the second most preferred platform for commissioners after X, and Facebook is also quite high on the list for the official EU institutional accounts. And it also seems that LinkedIn is not so popular with the commissioners compared to other platforms. Now, we've seen that Threads is also gaining some popularity. I do believe that in the next couple of weeks and months, this trend will continue to rise. So we need to continuously monitor the space, because one thing that we have definitely learned this year, well, it probably echoes from previous years as well, is that change is inevitable. And I think with next year's elections, when the new parliament, when the new commissions are, when the new commission is appointed and elected, there will be also yet another shift. So it will be interesting to see where the policymakers go. That's why we're planning to revamp the research early next year, but also after June, and see where the migrations will be taking place.
Yeah, no, I think it's very interesting. And the fact that Instagram is number two, is actually particularly relevant since Threads uses your Instagram, followers as a starting point, which means that it makes it easier for that transition to take place. So again, we don't know, and there's a lot of discussion. I was reading some discussions on this today. People are saying there's not a lot of engagement, but it depends on what you're looking at. So I think this is going to
Yeah.
be a really big question. I'm very excited about the Fediverse and the open platforms. But there's, of course, the trend that everybody's been talking about, which is AI, which, it started last year. I think at the end of last year, we were very excited about OpenAI and ChatGPT's release. Now, this is all part of our daily work now. It's been everywhere. And, it's changing a lot of what we're doing. And Jesus, we're very excited to see that you are not alone today. Next to you is Pepper, a robot that's been around for some time, but it's kind of got an upgrade with ChatGPT. So maybe you can tell us a little bit about what's happened to Pepper, and I hope Pepper's okay. And I also have a question about if you're worried about what Pepper might do to you. We'll come to that in a second.
No, I don't think it's dangerous. So, but still a lot of fun actually to play with it. It's true that I'm not okay. I'm not so advanced as our partners. No, like for example, Thomas, he's into this for a long time. So I myself, what I'm doing is trying, testing, and all that with a machine that's a priori is a machine that was kind of discontinued for a bit. So Pepper had like an old software that actually was not permitting it to go much farther in terms of intelligence. And now suddenly, with all this revolution that we live in of artificial intelligence, because in terms of hardware, it's still a good hardware tool. I mean, it has many things with the tablet, can hear, can move around, can recognize faces and all that. So as a hardware, it's really cool. But it's true that it was a bit difficult to program it. I still have it in the version 2.5. There are new versions that are permitting to code it on Android-based environment. But the point is that still with this level, I could connect. I'm not the first, but I'm enjoying it a lot to do it. I could connect it with ChatGPT, and that then suddenly brings a huge opportunities to this, because suddenly you have a robot that can move around, that can recognize people, and suddenly can have a much more natural way of talking and interacting with the audience. And that is really exciting to see how actually all that is happening. At the same time, I've been using ChatGPT to help me with the coding to make that connection. So still playing with it. Obviously, it's not totally performative. Right now, it's not connected to ChatGPT, but it's been a lot of fun, and see how actually this artificial intelligence revolution we have lived in just 1 year is bringing them plenty of opportunities. I can imagine, and we were discussing about that field. Imagining this next year when all the GPTs on ChatGPT start flourishing and appearing, and people can then use them, or how we can then suddenly insert one of those GPT into Pepper. That would bring a lot of opportunities for it to represent then in many places, for example, or to talk about, I don't know, anything related to our clients, any place. So quite cool.
Yeah, I think this is one specific thing that has happened to ChatGPT, which is the creation of these specific GPT. So if you have a subscription to OpenAI's ChatGPT, so the GPT Plus, you can create your own version of ChatGPT, and that's really important because it means you can create a kind of bot which you feed, and you say, okay, I'm going to put all the books about European Commission legislation on, digital, the single act, and all the relevant documentation, and then it can kind of answer question around that specific data set. And next year, there's going to be an app store where people can actually see these bots and start interacting with them. And I think we're going to see a lot of creativity coming out of that. So I think that's one really exciting area. The other one is the APIs, and this is basically the fact that you can interconnect different things. We're now talking about threads opening up to APIs, which Twitter used to have APIs, which means programs that you can kind of plug into Twitter to get data, to manage your content, like Hootsuite and things like that. Twitter has progressively disconnected those and asked for much higher charges. I think Threads is going the other way to build basically a competitive advantage. But I think that's going to be, again, a lot of technical words might become part of our mainstream conversation. Fediverse, interoperability, APIs, GPTs, of course, is already part of our conversation. Now, there's been a breaking story yesterday that a Tesla robot attacked a worker in a factory and kind of made them bleed. Are you not scared that Pepper might come after you in your sleep?
Well, in particular, Pepper, I don't think he's too strong. I mean, these hands are more for for expression, to express themselves and all that, to talk. So it's not so strong. So I don't believe that actually he would really harm me, I hope. But still is a sweet one. So I like. So I don't think it would happen. But it's true that this is really interesting. That attack at a Tesla plant that happened. I think it's some days ago. No,
it was actually the attack happened before, but there's a lawsuit right now. I think it's clickbait, but it's the kind of title that maybe we'll see for real in the coming years with actual problems between humans and robots. Who knows? Now that brings us to 2024, of course. So I want to go back to you, Marsela. What is the thing that you are most excited about in 2024? Any trend, any shining blue object that you think is going to change everybody's lives?
Yeah. Well, everyone talks about AI, so that's why I won't mention it, because I think it's an oversaturated conversation, but obviously that's one of the main things. Another area that I'm excited to really see where it goes is the Web3 and the Fediverse. I think it does have the potential to completely reshape the internet once again. And it's not in early stages of development. Actually, the Fediverse dates back to quite a few years back, but it's finally starting to gain some traction. It's not necessarily a buzzword anymore. We've seen it being implemented and integrated from early or not so early adopters. So I think it does have the potential in 2024 to become something more and a more established trend. But what I find fascinating about it is the promise and innovation that it offers to create a more decentralized and user-controlled online world. So being able to control your profile, your username, your followers, your content on any channel at any time, I think can really provide a solution for the Musk problem that we're all having, or just any type of $1 million company problem that can arise in the future. And as I said, this is already happening with the ActivityPub protocol integrated with Threads, with Mastodon and Flipboard. So I think that, more and more platforms like this will become integrated in 2024. And we want to experiment with our channels as well and with our website. So more on this next year. But we definitely want to make sure that we are embarking on this journey as well.
So I asked actually ChatGPT, what are the most important trends in communication and social media for the EU coming up? I actually had to ask the question several times and got quite different answers. So I think this is really important to remember that with AI, the prompting is really important. Understanding what you're asking for and recalibrating those questions, because you do not get straightforward answers. It's the same for our designers when they create images. You don't get it immediately. It takes quite a lot of work and quite a lot of skill. So, I don't think anyone at this point has to worry about being replaced, but figuring out how to use this. So the answer that I thought was interesting from ChatGPT, because I've got quite a few, I also went to Bard, was digital transformation and online platforms. And that's the kind of emergence of new platforms that are going to create shifts in the way we consume information. I think that's one we are discussing a lot. Combating disinformation and misinformation. And of course, that's partly in legislation because of the DSA, but also because of the election. This is going to be a huge topic. And I think it might end up being like the millennial bug, which is everybody talks about it and not much happens. That's my kind of prediction. And then, public engagement and civic participation. Will we be able to get more engagement thanks to social media? And then use of advanced technology and the relaunch of the metaverse AR through Apple. So that could be, some of the trends that I think are interesting. But I had a whole list of other ones that I think were not that interesting. And longer videos. I mean, come on, it's not it's not the biggest, most interesting trend. Authentic content. I mean, how many times have we heard that word? Jesus, any trend from there that you find exciting or that you think will actually be a big focus for you, in addition to AR and VR?
Exactly, that some of them you already pointed, and we already discussed about that last previous weeks. But it's true that for me, in the line of what we have been discussing today, the appearance of new GPTs, I mean, the fact that now you can start framing and then forming and preparing and educating in some way GPTs to tell and to say things in the way you want, and to represent maybe you as a brand online, or to help you and to be a helper then to develop. Pepper is thinking I'm talking to her.
She wants to know something.
Yes, she wants to talk. So so all those things at the end, I think there is a huge opportunity there, and it's going. I think it's going to be crazy in the moment that we start next year to see how it's helping. It is true that in the last weeks and all that we have been testing, we're preparing already, and I feel that even Ivan, for example, he's a lot into that. Like getting deep into the creation of GPTs, specifically helping you for a specific task and all that, and that as then we are also experimenting even to respond or to prepare documentation that then afterwards is addressed in a next level again with AI for developing the content and all that. There are a series of spaces from the whole communication line where the AI can support a lot, and that is, for me, one of the big things that next year we're going to bring to the next level.
Yeah, and I think what we're going to see is that the hype over AI is going to start to die down, because I mean, there's only so much hype that you can take, and every day somebody's saying, "Oh, AI is going to change your life." People will just say, "Oh, listen, we've heard this 15 times a day last year. Enough already." And from that time, we're going to see a crazy video and something amazing, and we're going to go like, "Oh my god!" But I think that it's almost what you call the hedonic treadmill, or kind of some level of adaptation. We're becoming less excited about the new thing. And I think also a lot of people have not really applied AI in a practical way. They've been talking about it a lot. It's been a lot of hype. But if you look back and say, well, what has changed about the way you work with AI? Not that much. Okay, I've got a great editor. I can improve my posts. I can improve my writing. But it doesn't feel fundamental compared to the hype. And I think what we're going to see next year is the very difficult work of implementing maybe simple processes, using Microsoft's Copilot to create documents, PowerPoints, emails, reports of meetings, and start changing the way you work. Now, it's going to be slow and discreet. I don't think it'll get the kind of hype that we had this year. And I think maybe towards the end of the year, we'll start seeing actual change. But I think it'll be much more difficult than people had anticipated. And I think we're not going to talk about it with the level of enthusiasm that we had this year, but people are still going to talk about it. So before we leave, let's go to our recommendations. So Marsela, you had a recommendation, and I wasn't sure it was actually a recommendation. I thought it was just a note.
Yes, indeed. It's a note to self. So I don't know. I feel like every time I come on the ZN live show, I have podcast recommendations. Maybe that says something about my habits. But yeah, indeed. My recommendation for this week is the podcast Note to Self, which explores the intersection of technology and humanity. So I really love the discussions that they featured there. They have very cool interviews about how we can navigate the digital landscape more mindfully. I've talked about being more mindful before. Mindfulness is really a key component of my life. And especially in the digital world that we're living in, it's important to understand how to maintain meaningful connections in this increasingly digital and AI-driven world. So for anyone who's interested about embracing mindfulness and seeing how to navigate the space in a much more, what is the word? And not composed, but mindful way, let's say that, this is the podcast to go for.
Okay, Jesus, what is your recommendation for this week?
So
the final week, 2024.
I will come with a newsletter from Philip Boremans. So I suggest that you get into the What the Doc newsletter. There is one in particular that is a review of 2023, where he talks about crisis, risk, emergency, communication, and obviously AI. So that's why I think it could be an interesting read for the end of the year. I'm preparing for the next year.
Yeah, and Philippe Bormans is actually an expert at communication. We've been in contact with him before, and he's really looking at how to use AI in managing crisis. So quite interesting. We're going to have him on the show next year. So excited to be there. So my recommendation is actually also a podcast, Marsela. So we have 2 podcast recommendations. And this one is called FIR, which is for immediate release. And it's a very long-running podcast from Neville Hobson and Shell Holtz. And actually, I kind of came across them through IABC, the International Association of Business Communicators, which I was very active in. I was the European president, as well as the Belgium chapter. It's a great network of communicators. And they basically have very informal conversations about topics related to communicators. Neville is in the UK, Shell is in the US. They talk about the latest trends. They're quite tech savvy, but from a traditional comms approach. And so they're talking about, actually, it's interesting because they talk a lot now about the Fediverse and how to implement, the Activity Pub modules on WordPress, and do they work or not? So it's kind of very hands-on and also reacting to trends about, what's in the news, and they read some news stories. So it's kind of like having a conversation with some very informed communicators and just listening in and seeing that. So I think it's quite nice. And I think with all these podcasts, what I would recommend is check out the end of year wrap-ups, because often what they do is they tell you what was the best podcast they had or the highlights they had for the year. So it's a great way to make a selection for the stuff that's worth listening to. So I think with all of that, I wish everyone online in all over the world, in the ZN network and beyond, a fantastic New Year celebration. I look forward to seeing everybody in 2024 to be not just one step ahead, but also 1 year ahead. And hopefully we're going to be doing some very exciting and interesting things next year. So see you all online and see you in 2024. Bye for now.
Bye.
Bye-bye. Bye.